Hi, and here we are with section 1.1, all in chapter 1 or unit 1 here. Big picture, we're talking about how do we get good data. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about this, consider we're they, and notice we're just saying they, that's the statisticians, the people that are running the survey or experiment or whatever it is. Just envision they, them, who are getting the data. Where do they get the data from? Give an example of how the data may have been collected. So read through those real quick, think to yourself. 1.1, where do data come from? That's what we're talking about. We're wondering, where do the data come from in a statistical study? So as you're looking at that and as you're thinking about that, there's all sorts of statistics that are thrown around at you. You look at any news or any science reports or anything like that, and statistics are going to be something that they cite when they have headlines or in reports. There. Question is, where do the data come from? So what you can do at the end of the day, I can describe different methods of data collection. So there's different ways of doing that. We're going to talk about those. I can identify individuals, samples, and populations of a study. So that's what we're looking for at the end of the day here. We'll start off with individuals. Individuals in a experiment or a survey, those are the objects that are described by the set of data. So the objects, these could be people. These could be the people that we're talking about. It could be anything. It could be hair color. It could be height. It could be shoe size, like we were talking about in our project that we just did. The individuals are the objects that we're describing. Animals, we're talking about birds migrating, and we're talking about numbers of birds migrating. Could be things. It could be the length of your desk or your table. We're talking about coming up with some statistics to describe a set of individuals. In this case, can be people, animals, things, etc. So it could be anything. That's what you're just describing with the set of data. Variables. Now this is going to be the characteristic that we're talking about. This is what's going to change from person to person. This is what is going to vary from person to person. And we're talking about that characteristic. So it can be a number, it can be a word. So we'll get into qualitative and quantitative in a few lessons from now, but we'll get into that later. But that's what's going to change from person to person, or thing to thing, or individual to individual. This can take different values for different individuals. And that's kind of what I was talking about when I said that this is going to vary from person to person or thing to thing. So I have a table here. If you look at, this is just, we're looking at the variables years in law enforcement. So we're looking at some law enforcers here, and we have range. So anywhere from 4 to 30 years in law enforcement. There's 71 people that did this, and what you're going to find out stands for the total number of people. So this is going to be a numerical value here. Things you can do with numerical values: you can find means, you can find medians, modes. You can do some other statistical things. We're really just going to kind of brush over the top of it in this class, but with variables, they can be numbers or they can be words. So we're talking gender here. So male, female. They can be descriptive words. They can be hair color. Hair color is not going to be a number. Hair color is going to be a color. So brown, red, blonde, and you're looking at that, and those are things that you can't really add up and average out. So you got to go about your statistical inferencing a different way when you're talking about things that you can't necessarily do that with. So this is what's going to take different values for different individuals. Populations and samples. So the population in a study is the entire group of individuals about which we want information. So the population is the entire group of individuals. Okay, if you think about what the population of Buffalo is, the population, it's the number of individuals that are in Buffalo. So think population is everybody. That's the entire group of individuals that we want. The sample now is going to be the part of the population from which we actually collect information. So you're going to find out that it's not really logical or even possible to always get information from the entire population. If you envision talking about getting some information from the residents of the city of Buffalo, and the population of Buffalo is about 16,000. Imagine talking to 16,000 people. That's a lot of people. So what we do is we sample. This is going to be the part of the population that we actually collect information from. Then what we can do, if we use good statistical methods, I'm going to keep saying that because there's ways to get a lot of people to answer questions that aren't necessarily going to give you good data. But this, when we use good statistical methods, we can use this to draw conclusions about the whole. So let's break this down for you. So here is what we do. So what we do is this is our big population. This is our big population over here. This is all people in, let's just say, the city of Buffalo. Okay? This is all people in the city of Buffalo. This is all 16,000 people. So step one is all 16,000 people. Now, this group of people has some parameter. And we're going to talk about parameters in a second here, but that's the number that represents the entire population. So let's just say, all right, what percentage of Buffalo residents like chicken nuggets? Chicken nuggets. And what we have is there is some population. There is a number that exists, that the number of people that like, the percentage of people that like chicken nuggets exists. That number is out there. But it's hard to talk to 16,000 people. So what we say is that if you envision the population over here, there's a big wall between the population and the actual number of percentage there. So what we do is, instead of asking all 16,000 people if they like chicken nuggets, we take some random selection. We use good statistical methods, and we take some random selection. And this can be relatively small, but this is the people that we actually talk to. So these are the people that we actually sample, talk to. We'll say talk because it might not necessarily be mouth, it could be answering a survey online or whatever. We'll get into that, but these are the people that we actually talk to. These people, this is a manageable number here. And what this manageable number does, it gives us some number, some statistic. Now, this doesn't come from the entire population. This comes from the sample. We used good statistical methods. So what we can do from this vantage point right here is we can see that, and we can make inferences about what the population mean actually is, or what percentage of Buffalo residents like chicken nuggets. So it's kind of a roundabout way. There's not a good way to get from here to here, and we'll talk about what that's called in a second here. So what we do is we take the roundabout way. We say, hey, there's a big group of people. We're going to break it down into a manageable chunk. We're going to ask those people, get some information from them, and then we're going to be able to make inferences about that population mean. So how do you do that? Survey is going to be some general view, examination, or description of someone or something. So you think about every year in school, you take the student survey, right? They're asking you your views on what there are. You go to a restaurant and you get a receipt, and the waiter says, hey, take this survey and you'll get a free appetizer next time or something. What they're looking for is they're looking for some view or examination describing what your experience was at their restaurant. I know if you go to Walmart, sometimes you get the long receipt that comes out that has the survey. You go and you punch the numbers, you take the survey, you get something. Now, they're not giving that to everybody. They're just giving that to a sample. So this is going to be just some view, and you can look over here and strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree, Likert scale type thing. I'm sure all of you have answered some sort of survey at some point in your life. So methods of data collection. This is how we actually go out and get that data. So there's a census. You have probably heard that word quite a bit this year since it's 2020 and this is a census year. But a census is one way that we can do it. A sample survey we've got observational study, and we've got experiment. So we've got a census. We're going to start with census here. A sample survey that attempts to include the entire population. Okay? The U.S. Census Bureau, it got its name from a census. I'm sorry, there's somebody patching in right now. A sample survey attempts to include the entire population. Entire population. That's what we're looking for. So let's go back up here real quick. The only way that we can find out that information of Buffalo residents that like chicken nuggets would be to do a census, would get us here. But that's not really logical. That's not really plausible. It's not a good option because that's a pretty big undertaking, talking to 16,000 people. So as you can imagine, talking to all, 330 million people in the United States is a massive undertaking, which is why they do it every 10 years. So the U.S. Census tries to include every single person in the United States. So we get everybody a census, hence the name, the Census Bureau. We're trying to get everybody. A sample survey, what this is going to be, it's going to survey some of the group to gain information about the whole. This goes back to our chicken nugget example. We've got our entire population. We've got all Buffalo residents. We're curious to find out what % of Buffalo residents like chicken nuggets. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, all right, that's a lot of people to ask. We're going to break it down into a manageable group. And we'll talk about sizes and sample surveys, and that's coming up in chapter 2. So I'm just going to say for now a manageable group. We're going to talk to those. We're going to talk to those people. And like I said, that is a manageable group, so we can get that data, and we can get that data relatively quickly. So we're going to talk to some to gain information about the whole. And if we go back up to our picture up here, our chicken nugget example, we're starting here, right? We're starting in Buffalo, and we're doing the roundabout way to get to our population mean. So that would be a sample survey. An observational study, the ant colony, it's kind of an outdated thing, an ant colony, but basically what it was 2 panes of glass that you filled with sand, and you put some ants in there and you let them go nuts. And what they did, you could see the tunnels, you could see them all working. But what this is this observes individuals to measure the variables, but does not attempt to influence the response to describe some group or situation. So if you think of a psychologist observing children playing on a playground, looking for hyperactivity, not in the mix, trying to manipulate the situation, but simply sitting back, observing in their natural habitat. So we're not trying to influence or manipulate is a big word here with this. We are simply observing, hence the name observational study. In an experiment, this, on the other hand, does impose some treatment. So this is going to impose some treatment. This is going to be quite different from an observational study, where the observational study, we're just sitting back. The experiment, we're right in the mix, and we're manipulating, and we're purposefully manipulating the situation, the subjects, if you will. Some words that you're going to see. So say we got a group of volunteers, we're going to split them up. We've got let's just say some blood pressure medication. Some blood pressure medication that we're going to try out. And we want to see, does this blood pressure medication make an effect on individuals? So we have our group of people, and we're going to give, half of them, we're going to give them the treatment. This is going to be the actual blood pressure medication. The other half, we're going to give a placebo. This is the control group. A placebo is going to be a dummy treatment. It's going to be something that looks, smells, tastes, feels like the actual active ingredient, but it's not. And you do that for the placebo effect. And we'll get into experiments. That's a chapter 3 thing. But just for now, see that right here, we are manipulating the situation. Manipulating the situation to see what we have and what the response is. So this is going to be used to see whether some treatment is going to cause change. And the success or lack thereof of that blood pressure medication, when all is said and done, is going to be a big ticket for the movement of that blood pressure medication into the masses. So here is kind of a breakdown, and this is the last slide I have for you. So here's a breakdown of what we're looking at. So an observational study in this experiment, or this visual here for you, kind of breaks it down. So we've got observational study over here. So we've got, let's just say we're some psychologist and we're seeing what energy levels that our subjects have. So we're an observational study. What we have is we have a group of people that work out without me or without us telling them to work out. These are people that work out. We are simply observing their average energy level. And then we also have a group of individuals that don't work out, and we're observing their energy level. Once again, we are not manipulating the situation. We're simply observing. So we're not saying, hey, work out, or hey, don't work out. We are simply observing the average energy level of people that do work out or don't work out. Now, an experiment, on the other hand, you have a group of individuals, informed, consenting individuals. What we're going to do is we're going to take them and we're going to randomly assign them. They don't get to pick. They're going to be assigned a group that's going to either work out or not work out. And what we're doing is we're taking the average energy level from there. So you see where the manipulation is. We're saying, hey, you need to work out, you need to not work out, then we're going to do this. We're going to take the average energy level of you that work out and you that don't work out. Whereas over here, this is already happening, and we're simply observing the average energy level. So that is, where do data come from? Go back to the top to wrap it up here. At the end, I can describe different methods of data collection. We're talking about the surveys, the census, the experiments, observational studies. I can identify individuals, samples, and populations of a study.